Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Visability Film Festival Industry Talk session. My name's Sam, and I'm the co-director at the festival. And joining me, we have Steve Toussaint. Steve is the writer and lead performer behind our Side B Claw short film, A Viable Candidate. He's also acted in some huge projects in recent years, be they Hollywood blockbusters such as Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time, or British TV favourites such as Doctor Who and Line of Duty. Thank you for joining me, Steve.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
That's all right. So by the time people come to watch this, hopefully they'll have already seen A Viable Candidate. So if we could just start there, and I'll just ask you a few questions about that, if I may.
Sure.
For a short film, it feels like it's got such an impressive amount of scope. For something that's under 20 minutes long, you really get a sense of how far-reaching the characters' lives are. You see a bit of Sylvain's past, you see his present, and you get a hint of what his professional and political future might be. When you started writing, was that part of your aim, that you wanted something that felt far-reaching?
Yes. I mean, initially, the reason I wrote this was because my friend, the director Orson, was looking for something to direct, basically. He posited the idea of a political candidate who was having the forces of the intelligence services pitted against him. So that was the basis of it. But also, as an actor, you want to have a character that's interesting. One of the things that you do, well, that I do when I approach a script, is you try to imagine what the character was doing before we meet him and what will happen tomorrow when the script is over. And so you can only do that by, you obviously you can't have a character sort of go, I woke up this morning and before I came here, I did this. You try and do it with little hints and stuff like that. And so the idea was to try and encapsulate a much wider world inside this, basically this, I think they call them chamber room dramas. I think it's something like that. Basically trying to encapsulate a wider world. And so that's what I try to do. And I'm glad that it feels that way when you watch it.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. Which leads me very naturally on to my next question, which is that it really feels like something that you could take the characters into different forms, be it TV or film, or would there be one that would kind of pique your interest if you were to take these characters and try and develop them?
Well, it's funny you should ask that, Sam. As I said, we literally did this just for Orson to have something, and then we would all have something we could say, hey, look, we did this. But the interest has been so great. We've now had interest from a couple of production companies and a broadcaster. So I am now in the process of trying to expand that world. And so what I'm trying to do is, we're looking more deeply into their relationship. What are the dynamics of it? Because we actually shot a second part to this before we had this interest. There's a second, because once people had seen the first one, they were going, oh my God, I'd love to be in the car when they're going home. So basically, I wrote that and we shot it. So one of the things I want to do is look at their relationship. Also, there was a time, Orson tells me, because Orson is very into politics and all that stuff. He mentioned the fact that there was a time when the intelligence services were actively avoiding recruiting ethnic minority agents. So then that led me to think, well, what would be interesting would be the relationship between the man we call Suit, I'll have to give him a name, and Dennis, the chap who appears at the door. What's their history? And of course, what happened on that night that policewoman died? Who was responsible? Will we ever know? Is Sylvain responsible? So those are the avenues that we're now exploring. So it's hopefully it'll be exciting and we'll get something out of it.
Okay, so we'd see possibly a younger Sylvain going back. Okay.
That is the plan at the moment.
Fantastic, sounds brilliant. So you mentioned there Bob Gwillem's character of Suit. I think lots of people find that part particularly memorable because he really comes into the scene and just shatters it. It's a very entertaining watch. What was that character like to write?
It was a joy. I think you'll hear this a lot. People always say to write the villain, and to all intents and purposes, for this piece, he is the villain. Because as you say, he comes in and he shatters this world, their world. they're great to write because they're not constrained by the social mores that the rest of us are. And also, I mean, it's just the words, but it's, I mean, 80% of it is what Bob did with it, but it's that relish. I was thinking of, I don't know if you've ever seen a movie called, oh my goodness, it's a German movie, Something of Our Lives. Oh, it's gone. That's terrible. It's such a fantastic movie as well. Oh goodness. Anyway, it takes place in East Germany before the wall has come down.
Lives of Others, is that?
That's it.
Hey, yeah.
Thank you. And that opens with a guy who was basically listening to our couple, and I was thinking of him because here is a guy who is just doing his job. He's very good at it. Maybe he enjoys it, but he's not a villain as far as he's concerned. He's doing a job for the greater good. And that's kind of where I wanted to place that character. The enjoyment that he gets out of it, well, that's partly Bob. And it's just the joy of writing somebody who doesn't really care. I mean, from the moment he mentions her past, the fact that she has had an abortion, how the hell do you know that? But also, he just throws it out there. It's a joy. I can put you on a moon on the chalet if I want to. It's frightening to have somebody with that kind of power who can just use it so, for want of a better word, nonchalantly. So yeah, it was an absolute joy to write that. I wish I could have played it.
Great, fantastic. Well, going on to things you've been able to play, if I may, just a couple of questions about you as an actor as well. In particular, something that kind of interested me is that you've obviously, some of the titles that you've acted in are so well received and so famous and huge. You know, I'm thinking Line of Duty and Doctor Who, these massive projects. Well, and you know, longer films, you know, Prince of Persia and that kind of thing. I just wanted to know if your process when you're acting, does it differ when you come to short films, or is it similar even on lengthier projects?
I think for me, it's exactly the same. I wouldn't know how to change my, for want of a better word, method. You're always trying to find the truth of a character, whether you're in the scene for 3 minutes or 30 seconds. So no, it doesn't change at all. Of course, you're aware when you walk into the set of Prince of Persia and you see all of that huge stuff, but the actual what's the word I'm looking for? The actual nuts and bolts of the acting process is still the same. You still have to say the lines with truth, as if it's the first time they've occurred to your character, and so forth. And then you leave all that other stuff to the director, to the editors, and so forth. And again, the same thing with a short. So it would be lovely to be able to, well, for me, it would be lovely to be able to adapt my style to whatever the project. Oh, it's just a short, so I won't work as hard. But I don't actually know how to do that. So the work is the work, basically.
Yeah, great. Yeah. So recently, a piece that I saw you in was Steve McQueen's small axe production, Red, White, and Blue. I'm sure that other attendees to the festival are going to be familiar with Steve McQueen, be it his films, Hunger and Shame and 12 Years a Slave. And then if they're not familiar with his films, then through his art, you know, his recent piece of the photographs of, I think it was Year 3 London students. So he's such a huge name in British culture at the moment, well, and in world culture. What was it like working with someone who right now is having so much deserved success? What was it like with Steve?
For us working with him, it was a joy. You when you're working with, I mean, I've worked with a lot of very good directors. When you're working with someone like that, who's just a step above, of course you always bring your A game anyway. But what's interesting about Steve is he has a particular standard that he is working towards, and he won't settle until he gets it. Sometimes you can feel on set, you can feel like you've tried your hardest to get somewhere. Maybe you're not understanding the director entirely, and he or she will just go, okay, yeah, that's fine. We'll try and sort it out in the edit. Well, he doesn't do that. No, you're gonna get it. And it can be very tough, but it's so rewarding. I mean, there were at least 2 scenes at least two where I was in tears at the end because of the what I had to do. In fact, one of them actually, I'm actually in tears on camera. But there was one where I was literally had to have a hug from the sound man who was like, "No, you did it. It was great." Because you have to raise your game. You have to find that level. I mean, that's the joy of working with someone like that who then pushes you. And also, the other great thing about him and most good directors, the great ones, is that they're able to communicate what they need and then get out of the way and let you get there. It's still a collaborative thing. No matter how the fact that he has Oscars and he's Sir and he's got all this stuff, he still has a great love and affection for actors and for what we do, which is surprisingly rare in this business. It's amazing when I could tell people that. An awful lot of people think of us as warm props. But for someone who is, but for someone who's done all of that stuff, he still has this fascination and this, as I say, admiration for what actors do. And he's happy to sort of go, like sometimes I'll say to him, Steve, I'm thinking of it, go, just do it. Just go and do it. I mean, that's your job. That's why you're here. You're the actor. Go and that's a very refreshing thing to have, especially from somebody so exalted.
Sure, great. And I did notice there is one Star Wars reference in there, and obviously you were acting with John Boyega. Did he mention it a few times? Did he talk about Star Wars much on set?
John, surprisingly, actually no. Funnily enough, I think it was. I guess when you've got that kind of stardom, it's just a given. Everybody knows you did that movie, that series of movies. No, he was more interested in. He has a production company. And he has a deal, I think he had signed a deal with Netflix. So they're creating their own products. I think he was more excited about that than
sure he would be.
what happened yesterday.
Thanks very much, Steve. Just one last tiny thing I wanted to ask. You mentioned about a viable candidate, its future. And you mentioned that you filmed a kind of a part two, as it were. Are there chances of people seeing that at future festivals, or is?
To be honest, I don't know. Now that we have this situation with a broadcaster that we have to, I don't know, because it's funny, I haven't seen it. My partner, the producer, has, and Orson, the director, have seen it, but I haven't. I would like people to, because I think it felt pretty good doing it. And, we put a little bit of romance in there. So that's something that I'll have a discussion with my other two partners, and we'll see, because I would like it to be, I mean, we made it for people to see. So I would prefer that people do. So fingers crossed, we'll see.
Yeah, sure. Great. Well, Steve, thank you so much for that. It was really interesting. I'm sure people are going to really love watching this session.
Oh, I hope so. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Cheers.